My son, we stand in the autumn of our civilization. The fields are thin, the air grows cold, and the predators grow fat on the weak. They gorge themselves now, knowing that winter is coming. Not a season of quiet snow, but a season of reckoning. A great winter, a great dying. You can smell it in the streets, the panic, the fear, the frustration of those who did not prepare. They built nothing, they stored nothing, and yet they believe, foolishly, that when the storm comes, they may live off the charity of men who carried the burden. That dependency was no accident, it was a trap. A snare laid by those who taught the tribe to trade strength for comfort, skill for distraction, duty for indulgence. They starved the harvest on purpose. They told the people that weakness was virtue, that hunting was barbaric, that labor was slavery. And so the tools of survival were forgotten, and the tribe was left naked before the cold. Now, the great winter begins to close in, and those who were deceived will perish with the lie. But hear me, my son. We cannot lay all the blame at the feet of them. Yes, they built the trap. They are the architects of this great dying, but we, our people, walked into it willingly. How many nursery rhymes warned us of lean winters? How many tales from our fathers and our fathers' fathers told us to prepare? We were given every warning, written into our own culture, yet we cast them aside. We traded them for the noise of pop culture, songs that promised the feast would last forever, that the revel would never end, that no bill would ever come due. And worse still, how often do we join in mocking the men who lived by the old ways? How often do we laugh at those who stood firm on the warrior's discipline? How often did we sneer at the men who stored grain for lean times, calling them fools while we squandered what was given? Now, winter closes in, and fear spreads like smoke. And suddenly, from the same voices that mock strength comes a new cry. Unity. Unity now, after the harvest is gone. Unity now, when the fire is low and the cold is already at the door. And you already know what comes next. The men who refused to take risks, the men who would not run the race, will appear magically at the finish line with empty hands. Yet still, they demand a share of the prize. They will clamor for a voice in what comes next, though they sacrificed nothing, though they carried no burden, though they bled not a drop. They call their idleness wisdom, and their hoarded comfort wealth. But in truth, they have built nothing. Their barns are full of dust, their treasure is paper, and their inheritance is weakness. Yet still, they will demand to sit at the table of those who bore the weight. And when they are challenged, when their fraud is laid bare, they will retreat to the last defense of the helpless. They will say, "But we are all children of God." How long have they mocked the gods? How they laughed at Odin, the furious one, the Lord of the slain, the Lord of hosts, as if their small laughter could kill such a mighty figure. They told themselves, "I do not believe in him, therefore he is gone. He is dead. He was never real." But Odin, Wotan, the Allfather, the Great Father, did not rage at their denial. He only watched, patient and silent. He let his children play at rebellion. He let them pretend their father was not home, that they could drink his mead and squander his stores without consequence. And so they feasted, they laughed, they raised weak sons. They bent the knee to foreign gods. They touched the hot stove again and again, and all the while, the Great Father watched. But now, the air grows cold, autumn has come, and with it, the first blast of cold winter. The children, fat and lazy, begin to see the shadows circling, the predators that were always there. And in their fear, they run to their foreign god, begging for a shepherd's protection, as if a shepherd could shield them from the consequences of a life of indulgence, as if the slaughter would never come. Yet deep down, in places they do not speak, they feel the truth pressing upon them. They know the Father returns, and he comes not with comfort, but with punishment. For in their blindness, in their self-righteousness, the Christians have delivered themselves, and all who followed them, into the greatest sacrifice of all time, the great dying. Even in what could be their moment of fire and triumph, the Christians cannot help but project weakness. They forgive the unforgivable. They excuse the murder and rape of their women and children. They pray for the assassins of their leaders, all in a desperate contest for a moral high ground that their enemy abandoned long ago. They celebrate hollow victories of conscience, refusing to name the evil standing before them. Righteous losers, faithful to the end. But it is all a facade. They wear the mask of meekness, preaching peace, while their survival depends on men willing to do violence. They denounce the sword in public, yet live only because others keep it sharp in the shadows. Their piety is performance bought with other men's blood. And so they shadowbox in their basements, congratulating themselves for victories won in their own imagination. They ride emotional highs and lows, pretending that moral purity will shield them from what comes. They lie to themselves, convincing their hearts that this false virtue will spare them from the great dying, spare them from winter. Before we can speak further of the great dying, before we can prepare for the coming winter, we must first confront the sickness at the heart of our people. Our broken relationship with violence. We pretend that violence is foreign to us, that it belongs only to the enemy or to the criminal or to the beast. We console ourselves with ceremonies and slogans, with hollow prayers and moral theater. But violence is not foreign. It is the root of our survival. It is the shield of the tribe. It is the burden carried by the warrior for the sake of the people. Until we understand this, until we restore the truth of it, we cannot endure what is to come. And so, my son, before we speak of the dying, let us speak of the warrior. The Christians will say, "But we love our soldiers, we honor our veterans." They will point to parades and hollow ceremonies, to token gestures from a government that despises its own defenders. They will wave slogans, commercials, and posters as if marketing could erase neglect and replace honor. But beneath the banners and speeches lies the truth. They treat violence as dishonorable. They demand the fruits of the warrior's labor while scorning the labor itself. And so the warrior is left to carry his burden alone, unseen, unacknowledged, unshared. We know that it is the warrior who must bear this burden. The priest is unfit, the politician is incapable, and the merchant is unwilling. Only the warrior has the strength, the discipline, and the will to act when the tribe is threatened. We know the tribe is infiltrated by enemies and invaders alike. They murder us openly. They desecrate our cities and monuments. And the state, whose sole purpose is to wield force in defense of its people, stands paralyzed by its own inaction. These states, the states of our nations, were built by the men of the tribe to visit violence upon our enemies. Yet now, they glorify peace with our killers and make treaties with those who spill our blood. This paralysis is not mercy, it is moral decay. It is the decay of hypocrites who praise the warrior in ceremony, yet forbid him to act in truth. We will not be fooled into believing these systems honor their warriors when they so readily throw away our sacrifice for the benefit of nations and institutions that despise us. How many of our men died in service to banks, to foreign interests, to causes that were not ours? How many returned only to be asked, no, expected, to carry the very lie that wounded them? Sometimes they lie to you, sometimes they lie to themselves, but they know the truth. And still, we heap insult upon the warrior by shackling him with outdated and absurd rules of engagement. Rules written not to win wars, but to soothe weak consciences at home. As if, by doubling the warrior's task, by binding his hands, we lessen the weight of the violence we refuse to accept. The Christian mind wants it sterile. They will take the fruits of the violent man's labor, but then appear on television to forgive his enemies and sanctify his killers. No one else in this world plays by these foolish and suicidal rules. No other nation weakens its armies with such shackles. In time, we will look back on this rules of engagement lunacy as nothing more than a legal chain forged to cripple the European warrior. And in the light of history, it will be judged as the cowardice that it was. It was not always this way. In the old ways, the whole tribe bore the weight together. There were rites to cleanse, to honor, to welcome the warrior home. His blood, his scars, his violence were acknowledged as necessary, and the tribe shared in that cost. It was never his alone to carry. Today, even speaking the truth of violence is twisted into an endorsement of political violence. This trick is no accident. It is a weapon used to silence the tribe and to isolate the warrior, leaving him ashamed of what keeps the people alive. This deception grows from a deeper betrayal, the separation of our people from the Germanic warrior ethos that once forged them into Europe itself. By abandoning it, they cut themselves off from the very spirit that ensured its survival. And when a state fails in this most basic obligation to defend its people and to punish their enemies, the contract of reciprocity is broken. You owe them no allegiance. They may not yet be your enemy, but neither are they your protector. They do not pretend to serve our tribe. See them for what they are: signs of decay and signals that new kingdoms must be built, kingdoms that honor the old ways. Their false moral posturing wins applause today, but it starves the tribe of strength tomorrow. It is all built on a single lie, that when winter comes, those who prepared will share their stores with those who did not. And so, we hear the traitors and the outsiders urging us, return to the church. I find it curious. If the church were truly the answer for our survival, why would they recommend it? Why would the enemies of the tribe point us there, unless it were useful to them and fatal to us? Even now, the Christian extends his hand of unity to anyone, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, invader of any kind, so long as that hand is never extended to Wotan. The church is not a shield for the tribe. It is a bridge for outsiders, a doorway through which foreign gods and foreign men march into the heart of our people. For those of you who know in your bones that something is wrong, for those who feel the great foreboding, you already see it. The herd, vast in number, marches blindly and gladly toward the abyss. And you must understand, you cannot save them all, nor should you try. The children had their fun. They gorged themselves on Odin's mead and plundered their father's stores. And Odin, the wise and patient father, let them. He allowed them to touch the hot stove, knowing that some lessons can only be learned through fire. In ages past, the weak would perish quickly against the harshness of the real world. But in this age of false comfort, they were rescued from nature's judgment, and so they multiplied, nursed by foreign gods, merchants, and masters who profited from their survival. They will never admit their betrayal of the tribe, because to do so would be to confess their own guilt. And so, they sit silently in their shame, watching as our cathedrals burn at the hands of invaders, watching as our sons and daughters are assaulted by foreign men. They deny their European roots, for the truth is too heavy, that millions of our men died to defend the homeland in the last great war, only to see their sacrifice betrayed for profit, their lands opened to outsiders. The betrayal is total, pervasive, and embraced by those who committed it. Their shame is too great, and so they pray harder to their foreign gods, hoping for forgiveness they don't deserve and that will never come. Yet know this, my son. It was never all men who betrayed the tribe. A few, always a few, remembered. They carried the truth across generations, often in silence, often mocked, but they carried it still. Without them, you would not hear these words today. But moving forward, the age of comfort is ending. Hard times have come, and the future will not belong to the merchant, not the priest, not the politician. The future belongs to the warrior and no other. Winter is approaching. The great dying cannot be stopped. It will sweep away the weak. But it can be endured by those who return to the Father, by those who reclaim discipline, preparation, and strength. Odin has not abandoned you. He waits for the sons who will bear the burden without shame, who will stand when others kneel. Our future does not belong to the weak. It does not belong to those who demand a share of the harvest they never sowed. The future belongs to the men who labored, to the men who fight, to the men who bled, and who bore the weight without complaint. Do not seek advice from men whose values brought the West to its knees. Marriage is at an all-time low, divorce at an all-time high, and children are no longer being born. Nothing is sacred. The results are in. The weak men who came before you were wrong. Reject modernity and abandon their example. The storm is here. Stand like men. Gather your brothers. Live as warriors. Endure. And when the winter breaks, it will be your sons who inherit the dawn. Embrace the warband. Until next time.